And so then we forget that we're here to serve the people. Because we get, so you all remember that, and it's fine. But I want to do something because it is Memorial Day. And I want to thank our audience for those who've been patient that probably thought that we were not coming on. We were just in a moment of worship. And so in that moment, now we're back in this moment. And so I want to thank all of you because there are some that are vacationing, that are watching, some that have been sick, and some that are coming through the pandemic. But a time to remember, Memorial Day is a time to remember, to honor, and to show our respect for all the men and women who gave up their lives for the country that fought to protect. They fought to protect. Although we cannot picture all of their faces, we give them thanks today. Neither do we know their names, but to those brave U.S. soldiers, amen, when called by our country, they answer. Amen. Let's just bow our heads in a moment of silence for all those who have served and lost their life serving this country. Amen. We thank you for your service to those families, to the wounded warrior veterans. For those are things that we as a ministry look forward to getting into and growing into and participating in, so we don't take our freedom and our liberation for granted. I want to talk to you in brief this morning. We're going to dig more into it this coming Wednesday. We've been talking about the power and the dysfunction of the subconscious. We began to talk about pockets because for those who have not seen the broadcast, we've been dealing with closing the circle, which deals with how the circle got broken. And so when we look at the subconscious, the power of the subconscious concerning the part of the mind which is not fully aware, the part of the mind. So it's just, and I was looking at some statistics last night that it's a very small part, but which is not influenced, but which has the power to influence one's actions and feelings. Examples of our subconscious are memories, beliefs, fears, and subject maps of reality, which we call pockets. So a couple things I want to share with you, because sometimes we do not know and we do not understand, especially when you get older and you begin to get your memory back. We talked maybe a week ago about forecast to broadcast. We dealt with Psalm 71, talking about multiple enemies. The scripture that I think that we will attempt to talk about is the fact the Bible says that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and darkness and wickedness in high places. And I think when we were together, we talked about it's deeper than what you think. And as I've done a little research, if I was going to share with you today, it would be the word that we're going to dabble into on Wednesday. It's understanding abandonment. And how between the subconscious and abandonment, it can affect us. Now, I know a lot of people would say, well, how does this affect us spiritually or in church? Just because you become a believer does not mean that your subconscious retires. In fact, when you are seeking a higher source or power relationship with God, your subconscious will play a stronger role to stop you from your growth. So this is why I say it's deeper than what we think. We don't realize that as an infant, and the reason I want to go there is because many times, depending on where you're from, your culture and your upbringing, we do not see and have not been told that we were not prepared to be parents. And I know there's a theory and an argument to say, well, you're never prepared. Well, there are some areas you can never be prepared for, but there are many areas you can be prepared for. But because we have dealt and we were born and we were kind of shaped in our environment into a broken system. So if you're going to write, I want you to write the word broken system. And so we have many stories where we have some that talk about broken homes. We have some that talk about broken families. We have some that talk about broken parents and broken brothers and sisters. But what I want to really focus on is a broken system. Because oftentimes you don't know a system is broken until you've been exposed to something greater than the system you came in. And to not know that a system is broken is you're comfortable with it. It appears to be the norm, but it was not your pre-existing destination. So if you want to write that, your environment, it doesn't matter how great you thought your father was, or how great you thought your mother was, or how great you thought your grandparents were. They prepared you the best they could with the knowledge they had. But there are certain elements in behavior and attitude and focus and discipline that sometimes we do not get from those factors. If we get that from those factors, we don't get the spiritual part. So let me make it plain. It's kind of like this. If you grew up and you didn't go to church, it's really challenging for you to go to church. And so people say, well, what's the problem? It's not a problem for them because either they adjusted or they grew up going to church. But a lot of people did not grow up with parents that went to church. And so what we don't understand is the psychological aspect of how we're damaging people before they're ever born. Because hypnotically, we are fashioned to believe that, oh, I got this job, I got this position, I got this desk. That's today. Yes. I can show you personal over thousands and thousands of people who did not go to school, who has an office job, who works for a company, and they don't think they needed any additional information. And the problem is that will work for 5 or 10 years. And in one of the cases that I know, it worked for 20 years. And right when the person thought they were going to get promoted, the company was sold. See, if you have a position today, you have an administrator and a supervisor and a manager today, it doesn't mean you're going to have that same supervisor manager tomorrow, and the next person comes in is going to require certain skill certifications that you need to have. I wish I need to get a bell and blow a whistle, because here's the problem. Here's how the old school operated. Well, they will teach me. People are not teaching no more. This is why the community college is one of the biggest things that's going. But here's the problem. We have it today, but doesn't mean we'll keep it tomorrow. Somebody asked me why. You weren't prepared for what you received. So how can you maintain what if you were never properly prepared to receive it? Because you did nothing to acquire it. It's kind of like the dating scene now. You can go to a party, and I just read that there was a shooting. 7 people got shot, and I don't know if 2 died or whatever. And so people are just, they're getting together, and everybody wants to have fun. There are people that's going to all kind of events, and there's nothing wrong with going to events. But you got to be careful where you go now, because people have these built up issues that are subject to break out. And here's the thing. Everybody thought they knew everybody that was everybody at the gathering. But somebody had a different toxic level in them to create a situation. And so what I look at when I look at the subconscious is how it is cheating people out of being prepared. Because I'm there does not mean I'm prepared. I know this sounds kind of like scrambled eggs. Is it making sense? You have the job, you have the position, and you feel like your family has said you were smart because you may be one of the few that's working at a desk, but there's no guarantee in 3 to 6 months that you will be still at that desk, because the next leadership that comes in will ask for your resume and do an evaluation of the present staff. And if all you have is the minimum, then they're going to find a way to exit you. I don't know what we're doing Those of us who's supposed to be clergy, we're telling you all about the Spirit and Jesus, but we also got to tell you that about life. The Lord said, I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. There are some earthly things we need to know. Because we tend to get to a place and we think there's nothing else we need to do to maintain the place. So many of us have been sold short based on our upbringing. And it literally is affecting our mind and our function in the daily process. Because the system says that if a child is conceived, and I want you to remember this word, and dramatize, the very DNA and the wiring of the brain of that child will be completely different. We are sometimes praising what we were not prepared to bring into this world. Now, let me tell you about an old cycle. An old cycle that is dated. I didn't finish. I didn't start. I didn't go. But I want you to go. Now listen. If you say you love me and we are past segregation, why is it you can't go but you trying to send me? The best example that you can have in your home are successful spiritual parents. Nobody got it? That's the best. A God-fearing father is a treasure. A God-fearing mother is a treasure. Now, you can achieve some things without this, but you won't have the peace of the things that you've achieved. And so we have not properly prepared ourselves to be mothers, to be fathers, to be uncles, to be aunts. We've not prepared ourselves because sometimes we're too much into ourselves. So it's deeper than what you think. So sometimes you run to what's wrong with your son, what's wrong with your daughter. You got to look at the environment that you set them in. And let me explain something to you. You can change the environment, but it doesn't change the damage that's already done. What does that mean? You can pull a person from the fire, but they still was burned by the fire. You can save their life physically, but the traumatic moment still exists. And it rewires that person's personality. It rewires them because some people are not touchy-feely. They don't want you touching them. They don't want you in their space before this pandemic. They don't want you in their space. But they never thought about what made them that way. And then there's some people just too touchy-feely. I was in a conversation yesterday, and the man was all up in the lady face. Now, mind you, he was in one lady face when we were sitting down and had on a mask, but you're like you're in my space. And so then he went and started talking to another lady and talked to her for 2.5 hours. You're in my space. And I said to myself psychologically, what is wrong with him that he think he got to talk to somebody for about 4 hours? We have to realize it's deeper than what you think. Your subconscious will rewire what you do and how you do. And it also will rewire what you accept and what you reject. Because there are people and there are things that can make us better. But because of our subconscious, the pockets of our mind that tells us to hold on to memories. And really sometimes we're holding on to old scars. And can I take it further? Many times you're holding on to old abuse. And you have abandonment issues. It's like a child or a pet being left in the car with the windows up and it's 110 degrees and 120 degrees in the car. The person that says I'm sorry is not the person that felt the pain. And just because a person says that he or she is sorry is not retroactive to the damage that have been done to the individual. So we got to look a little seriously at how we change and how we function going forward. Just because you're over it, it doesn't mean that your child is not struggling with suicide. Because as a parent, you can put too much pressure on your children. Because you want your children to do something that you're lacking in doing. And some people are grown and still affected by their youth because of the pressure or the not preparation that their parents put them through. See, this is why when I really found out why I was dealing with the 5 wise and the 5 foolish and the personal lens and the professional lens is when my eyes opened up. Because I wondered what is wrong with this person, and I wondered why they were always in their feelings and emotions, and I wondered why this group was doing this. And when I looked at their culture, they came up in a home where there was no accountability. They came up in a home where there was no correction. They came up in a home where there were certain principles that was absent. So no one prepared them. So then when they went out the door with the way they went in the room, with the same attitude, the same feelings, and the same emotions. So they think the world has to respond to their feelings and emotions. And they're subject to change anytime during the day. Because the parent ignored it, wasn't properly prepared to how to address it. So the same attitude that they stumped in the room with and slammed the door, they think they can do that in society. Because I believe what you pet, you destroy. Because you're telling them that everybody has to stop and cater to them. So when they're having an emotional moment and they pitching a fit and stomping and kicking, some people think it's cute. And some people try to comfort them. But here's one word that's missing. Where's the correction? Because if they're doing it at 6, they'll be doing it at 9. If they're doing it at 9, they'll be doing it at 14. If they're doing it at 14, they'll be doing it at 18. And psychologically, your mind will tell you they will grow out of it because your subconscious wants to pacify you away from your reality. And so the problems just moved out your house into the world. Is this making sense? So now you wonder why she can't have a relationship. It's because there was no communication in the home. You wonder why he can't communicate because all he ever saw was control and dominance. He never saw a father literally have a conversation with a mother. Hello, somebody. Because daddy was always yelling at mama, and mama was always telling daddy either what she wasn't going to do or what he needed to do. So some people have grown up and got into relationships and went on and got married. Now they're trying to boss their wife like their wife is their child. Because your mama acted like the child don't mean that that's going to work in your marriage. So if your daddy didn't work, you'll pick a man that don't work. Now ask me, why is that important? Because you won't know how to pick a man that's got a career. It's a difference in working and having a career, and it's a difference in having a career and being an entrepreneur. So if you never was exposed to it, then how can you know how to deal with something? Which takes me back to the reason that people need to go and get certified and educated, because you know how to make it work today. But as the company evolves, are you equipped with the information and the systems to be able to adjust everything to fit the new model? Are you still out there trying to pull a Chevrolet part on a Duesenberry? You're trying to put a domestic part on a foreign car. So it's like, come on. But we don't think this information is relevant. Paul talked about being dual beings. There's a war in my members. And literally many times with us, we're in the midst of a war and unconscious of the war we're in. Because in that infancy stage, if the environment is not healthy and proper for the mother, it affects the kid. And then we as uncles and aunts and grandparents, We'll try to spoil the kid because they have dysfunctional parents. So now who's really doing the damage? So we think we let him or her react in his or her emotion because of a dysfunctional parent, but at the same time, we're not preparing the kid to know that when you go out here in society, you can't walk off with an attitude. You can't walk off when authorities are talking to you. You can't do this and you can't do that, but you can be a wonderful person, look a person in the eye and speak to them with a level of intelligence that will let them know that just because you look like they don't let them stereotype you. If your head is hung down at home, your head is hung down in the house, your head is hung down in the street. If your pants are down in the home, then your pants are down in the street and your pants are down in the school. Ain't nobody hiring you for your gluteus maximus to be out in the restaurant when people are trying to buy their food. And a lot of things people blame on race when it's really lack of preparation in the home. Because we're not real with people about preparing people for their lives. You know why? Emotional people develop emotional people. And so they deal with everything through their body. This is why I said we worry about our flesh and not our soul. We worry about if we're going to be liked and accepted. We worry about trying to fit in. We worry about trying to get in. We worry about how we're going to be accepted. If you woke up, you are accepted in humanity. We don't see that. We think we got to have. There's some people don't have the money right now, but they out there on a holiday. They're going to be out there on their boats. They're going to be out there spending money. They're going to be barbecuing. They're going to be doing a whole lot of things, and their lights going to be cut out on too. Well, probably not now with the pandemic going on, but things will happen because we're not balanced. Choices. And so we got to look at toddlers and dealing with preteens. It shapes our future, and we wires our personality that many times is different from our pre-existing destination. How many parents have dreamed that their son and daughters would be certain things, but that's not the reality? How many kids do you know that have dreams, but because there's not a solid foundation, there's not consistency? See, we look at correction as a bad thing, and correction is a thing that positions a person. Because we cannot deal with life and society always through our subconscious, because our subconscious create pockets and memories that freezes us. And so, when I was reading some pretense last night, the thought came about abandonment. When a father or a mother abandons the home. And here's the thing. Many times they're in the home, but the home is still abandoned. Because there's no culture building process. There's no nurturing. See, we don't understand the nurturing between correction and petting. So many times there are people that are pet than correct. And sometimes people that correct never nurture. Because once you nurture, you move into developing a culture. Because if the kid does not feel comfortable at home, then the kid will not feel comfortable anywhere. This is why they don't talk in school. This is why some kids don't talk at home. This is why some kids act out at home, because there's a huge imbalance. Because sometimes, if it's a mother or the father, they overreact or underreact in the home. They don't understand balance. Because they are themselves dealing with their feelings and with their emotions. So when they're in their feelings, they don't care. When they're in their emotions, they're saying all kind of things. And so we don't understand how important. And I'm going to give you something. I'm going to go ahead and give you this because we worship a little bit, and I still want to get out on time. I want you to write this. Coming from a sinner. Coming from a sinner. Because I will probably deal with abandonment leads to mistrust a little bit more on Wednesday in all phases of our life. And I'll deal with false security that leads to destruction. But here's the thing. When I'm talking about home and us, we forget we came from a sinner or sinners. And we forget that we were unbelievers. two things that are high potent in our own subconscious. That sinful nature that we're familiar with. Remember when I talk about the familiar? David said, someone had sent me a scripture, said that they were born speaking lies. I remember my youngest daughter, I went to a store and she was sitting in the baby seat and she literally said, "Daddy, let me see your glasses." And stupid me, I gave it to her. And right there in the car, in her baby seat, she just broke them in half. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And she literally said at 2.5, "I didn't do that." And I'm looking in the mirror like it's another person back there. Because I said in watching this rearview mirror that you literally broke my glass. I gave them to her and she literally took both hands and just snapped them. And then handed them back. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? And she looked me in the face as innocent as she can be and said, "I didn't do that." And I'm thinking, who else is back there? See, we don't know how powerful the sin nature is. What we're kissing and what we're loving is still a little sinner. Anybody want to go with that one? Somebody said he done gone too far. My newborn baby, they ain't a sinner. The Bible said we were born in sin and shaped with an iniquity.